Hey, what's up? We're the Devil Wears Prada.
And you are watching Artisan News.
Awesome, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
To the record, what do you think was the biggest challenge or biggest obstacle of getting it done?
Initially, the fact that it's our fifth full-length record was a little bit daunting due to the fact that if you average it out at 11 songs per record, that's 55 or 45 songs worth of material that you cannot repeat. And also having been a band for 8 years, we kind of know that people are going to be listening to the record and that expecting a certain sound. So for me, it was just a challenge to write music that wasn't redundant, was close enough to our original sound so that it still pleased the fans, but to still progress and not progress too far. So it was pretty much just like the bullseye was a little bit further away and a little smaller this record, but I just think that we had enough time to make sure that all those things were taken care of. So I'm happy, and I feel like we accomplished that. So it was just a little bit difficult starting from zero with so much already had been done already, and not overdoing it.
Did you look at the process the same way?
Yeah, it is a challenge, and it's like he said, daunting. It's intimidating, and I had the same thing on my end as far as like I can't write another chorus that starts with the word "you" or like it's meticulous little things like that are definitely present itself as a big challenge. Even going into the recording process, it was pretty relentless as far as everyone disciplined themselves into working hard and working on time and making sure we were going to complete within the deadline. And then the mixing process was different for us. The first time you've ever had it mixed by someone that didn't engineer and produce it. So that creates a little bit of a situation as far as communication and
When you're overseas, it's even harder.
Yeah, which we were.
Yeah.
So it was relentless, and it's a big weight off of our shoulders to now have the record out today. Thank goodness.
And working with Adam, what was that experience like? Is there a comfort level there?
Yeah, I mean, it was our second time, and it was a little bit different for both of us because he was the executive producer, so he didn't want to come in and step all over Matt and overstep his boundaries. But I've developed a relationship with Adam that is very comfortable, very productive and fruitful, and he knows exactly how to make me work and how to make me come up with the best vocal takes, and he does a really, really good job complementing that. And I couldn't have more respect for Mr. D. And I know on my end, which him and I and Jeremy spent a lot of time doing vocals, and him and I in the B room while he's tracking it, while Matt's working with Chris and the other dudes. But yeah, Adam and I couldn't think more of the guy.
Yeah, and I mean, he obviously seems like a madman. So how does that translate to in the studio? Is he the same way in the studio, or is there another side of him that?
I don't think Killswitch fans ever get to see hard-working Adam.
They don't, and like I get this question so often as far as like how because they say what's it like to work with Adam. I say, and his sense of just workmanship and his discipline and his professionalism is unparalleled. Like he goes in and he works really hard. He's on time kind of guy, and watching a Killswitch set, you probably wouldn't guess that, but he's a hard worker by all means.
And he definitely keeps the mood light. He likes
He
to
does.
joke,
He
and
still goofs around the entire time, but
he's not like a circus performer in the studio. He is he works.
But you need that. You need somebody who knows how to break the tension and everything like that. And speaking of that, how did you guys? Because always when you're making an album, I hear it's one of the most stressful processes you can go through. So how do you guys work out disagreements, or how do you settle things, and does it ever get to the point where it gets bruised?
We scream and yell and slam doors and go for a walk. No, it definitely is stressful, like you said. Sometimes if one person's having a bad day, it's the same thing as any type of relationship that will carry over and stress everyone else out. And I think that it was just a matter of, we just have this mutual respect in the band. When somebody yells at somebody else, we know that that's not really what they mean. I've known Jeremy long enough to know that when he gets this certain look in his eyes, you stop paying attention to what he's saying, because he's just in that mode, and I have that mode too. And through the years, we've come to understand each other's tendencies, and we can read each other, and we know when somebody is willing to debate with you, and we know when somebody just is venting / should just be left alone. So generally we can avoid those types of confrontations, but every now and then they definitely the cork flies out, and we just go and grab the cork, put it back in the bottle. Like, we don't really get to, we don't hold grudges in this band.
Yeah. And, why 18? Why that?
When I read the verse, I was very drawn to it, and I very quickly realized that Romans 8:18 could serve as like the foundation to the sort of whole personality for the album and what I wanted to do lyrically. And I really liked its sort of mysteriousness, and I thought that, obviously a record title should be serious, as all of ours have been, but I feel like when it can become very diluted and kind of melodramatic when you have just so much. So I thought Numbers would be really cool within the contrast of our other albums. Chris was the guy that wasn't all about it. Dan really liked the mysteriousness, which is weird, because usually I think Dan is like the guy that I have the hardest time pleasing with these kinds of things. But
the first time I heard it, I was kind of like turned off by it, just gut reaction. But then as I sat and thought about it more and more, I was like, well, I'm curious and intrigued when I hear that. And so that's a good thing. And so honestly, with a lot of things on this record, I've just kind of trusted the other guys in the band, and just especially Mike here, as far as just driving the whole visual side of things, and just generalized direction. It's been kind of easy to let go and let him take the reins on a lot of that, because I do like where things are going as far as the visual aspect of the band and all that. But at first, 818 kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, and then I just sat there and thought about it, and it obviously has grown on me, and I now wouldn't have it any other way, and I really like it.
he still hates it.
I like it. I really like it.
Was there a specific moment where you became okay with it, or where you got what Mike was trying to kind of convey?
I think at first it just, the way that it sounded in itself just was kind of more like, I don't know if that embodies what I've pictured this album to be the whole time. And then I sat there and I thought about it, and I said, well, what else would be better? And as I repeated 818 in my head, trying to become used to it, it only took maybe 2 or 3 minutes before I realized, like, well, no, he did think about this, and this is fitting. And after thinking about what the meaning behind it was, on top of the way that it looks drawn out, the way it sounds when you say it, there wasn't like a specific turning point, but just as soon as I started to dissect it, then it felt right, I guess.
I wanted to get to Martyrs. What inspired that?
Well, the musically, it's kind of a weird song, because the riff is something that Chris just like noodled out one day, and we used it as like an outro and intro for Warped Tour. after With Roots Above, I think. Maybe after Zombie EP. But so we've been sitting on it all through Dead Throne, and we never used that riff for Dead Throne, so it's cool that it's been there for so long and it actually got used.
I have a demo of that riff. I think that it was from around when we were writing and recording With Roots Above and Branches Below, so like a while ago. And then we could just never find anywhere for that to fit, and one day we were like, well, this record doesn't have very many heavy songs. Let's take that intro and write a song around it. So that intro boom 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 thing was the only thing that was there at the beginning of that song. We just fleshed it out around that.
It's cool though. I love that. It's been sitting around for a while.
You can hop on YouTube from probably like
it was Warped, I think, that we were playing it.
2010 or something.
Yeah, but lyrically, it's a roundabout song. It's nothing. I by no means would consider it the most specific song compared to some like First Sight or Black and Blue. It starts to encompass a few different elements that make their appearance within the album, as far as like losing my sense of community, I think, is one of the more predominant characteristics within Martyrs, as far as like the church, and it, you know, the verses are just filled with these questions, and that all spawns back to losing, always having to be gone from home and whatnot. And Sailor's Prayer picks up on that, but and then obviously the very blatant forward level of conviction as far as Martyrs and Lover's Heart being the Lord. So yeah, it's a Christian song. It's a God-fearing song.
And you mentioned, you know, some of the influences, but just individually, what would you say would be your top 5 influences?
The reason that I really got into heavier music when I was a kid was I feel like you can either go the punk route or the nu metal route, and nu metal is just what lit my fire for heavy music. It just made me feel something awesome. Like, and back in the day, that was Linkin Park was my favorite band. We're talking when Hybrid Theory was out, that kind of thing, because I had never heard anything like that, and it just it had that something, and I totally felt it. And nowadays, really, this being the profession that I have, it's kind of hard to look at my peers and say that they're my biggest influence, but really all that I have to be influenced by are bands that are active right now, I guess, or I mean, I've heard almost, I'm assuming, every metalcore record that's worth listening to. It's hard to name a top 5 because it's everyone that I've ever listened to, almost. Like, I definitely will listen to a Death Cab song and say, oh, I love that interval right there. Like, I'm going to, instead of, oh, I'm changing that chord in our song. Or, you know, even stuff like top 40 pop. Like, sometimes I just hear little tricks that they do, and I just write it down, steal that idea. But I was always really, really, in no particular order, influenced by a lot of the, I guess you could call them solid state bands. So Norma Jean, Under Oath, that kind of stuff, initially is what really got me into this specific type of music. As I Lay Dying, things like that. And actually, funny enough, John Petrucci from Dream Theater is, when people say, who's your favorite guitarist? My cousin back in the day showed me him, and that's what made me want to try to be good at guitar. But yeah, top 5's almost impossible, just because, like I said, it's inspiration from everywhere.
Well, that was a pretty, wide-ranging group of artists there. What about for you, Mike? What would be your top 5?
It's really drastically changed record to record, which I try to do intentionally to make sure that I can write songs better as a vocalist. With 818, and I think really Black and Blue and First Sight specifically, I was able, which were like some of the last songs I did, and I think I did, not to be conceited, but I did my best at a certain style. And I think that when I look back at it and I try to think like Chris, like everything you hear, you have to, it subconsciously you're gonna be moved, or you're gonna do something like it. But so like those songs specifically, I hear like that kind of like American Nightmare way of like of like this that screamy, singy yelling, and that's something I've kind of picked up over really working on Dead Throne with Jeremy McKinnon did a little bit of vocal production with us, and Adam did the rest or all of it, and learning to tell or to make songs more cohesive, and that was something I tried really hard to do, and I think from what I listened to, I think American Nightmare would be definitely up there. For more of the yelly stuff, I really like the stuff like La Dispute and Touche Amore and Pianos Become the Teeth. Like I think that's become more forward on a song like 818. And as far as like narrative and fiction, I like that's where I come from. Most of the music I listen to, which is like more like indie and post-punk stuff, and specifically just thinking about how you can write a song fictionally or based on narrative, but you can do it so in such an opinionated way to where there's this message of morality there, which is something I like to do in my writing outside the band. But now when this horrible, terrible obsession with Nick Cave and knowing what he does with lyrics and the way he can tell a story with so much more behind it, I would like to try to encompass that and hopefully grow on that and be able to do stuff like that more in the future. And it's encouraging when I get to do songs that have more of like a fictional base, like Home for Grave, or 818 is kind of half and half between telling a story but with a certain level of morality and conviction behind it. So I like doing that stuff, and I think that comes from listening to those indie type stuff. And The National, I love what he does with like, I don't know, just coming up with a song, like this product, each piece, I guess.
Yeah, and what was there one particular song that you guys were working on that was a particular labor of love that you kept on trying to get, and when you finally got it, like, wow.
Home for Grave, maybe.
All of them.
Yeah. Home for Grave, well, you can speak about it probably better than me, but that was one of the ones, like, Mammoth for Dead Throne was a pretty different song. And then when we got it to Adam, it was like, yeah, we need to cut this apart. So Chris lost a lot of wonderful riffs he wrote within Home for Grave.
Home for Grave is about, if the song was originally composed of about 8 different parts, it now has like 2 of those repeated over and over. And it was because that was the one song that got a bunch of stuff got cut from it before Adam showed up to the studio. And then he showed up and he's like, we need to cut more. This and this. And I'm just like, there's no song left. Like, I don't even know what's going on, but I like how it turned out.
And obviously you're not too precious with your ego to,
sometimes it hurts to let go, but you gotta rip the Band-Aid off.
But here's a question, I wanted to find out, when you guys go make an album, do you ever consider your catalog of where it fits into the catalog, or you just concentrate on creating it in here and now?
For me, and given that he obviously has more of the songwriting and the important part, the audible control, visually I like for our albums to have a very specific identity. I saw this interview with Interpol where they were talking about like where when you think of one of their albums, you can think of a cover. And I'm a big fan of that band, and I can do that, and I've loved that very specific identity and that immediacy of that visual you get when you think about it, and that's what I try to instill within our stuff visually, at least, and even lyrically. I think that there are sort of domineering motifs within our albums, as far as like I think with Roots Above would be much more uplifting, and now it's all just going depressing and downhill from there. With Dead Throne and 818, and I think that even 818 contrasts Dead Throne in that there's both I think contain certain senses of hopelessness, but I think that Dead Throne was more aggressive. And it's hard for me to say, and I don't know exactly what people are going to pick up on, what people are going to understand, but Subjectively, that's how I feel about it, and I do try to understand these things, and I try to analyze them to some degree so that I can create an identity per record, which I think sort of, in an offhanded way, describes my perspective on the Prada catalog.
It definitely, we've never sat down and said, okay, this record sold this many records, so obviously that's our best record, so we need to make it sound like that. It's just keeping in mind everything that we've done in the past so that we don't overdo it and become stale. It's very much a natural progression as far as the sound goes. The reason this record sounds the way it does is not because we decided that beforehand, but because we always just write the best songs that we can right now, right when we're writing it, and it must just be our musical tastes mixed with just our lifestyles, and everything about us is what changes the way that the songs sound. Because, I mean, our first record was written by 16-year-old me, and now this new one is, I've been doing this exact same thing for 8 years, so I feel like I've heard everything that's been done. And as far as keeping in mind the past records when writing new material so it doesn't get stale, I also like to keep up on what other bands are doing and make sure not to do that stuff as well, just because it would be horrible to write a record that I'm really, really proud of, put it out, and then have somebody go, this sounds like this band. Like, oh, it just takes away the whole I thought of this part of it, I guess. You know, like, it's just an awareness, I suppose you could say.
Not necessarily for this album, but any album, you kind of go in a certain direction. Oh shit, you know, or they might have.
Yeah, and that's when we stop playing that song and just scrap it and press delete. Like, I don't know. Personally, when I'm trying to come up with songs, sometimes I will start with the beginning riff and try to go on, and if that beginning riff is not really flowing into anything else, I just select all, delete, start over. Like, but definitely we will, if something bothers somebody in the band, it doesn't make it through. So we have figured out ways now, whereas in the past we would just say, oh, we don't know what to do, let's move on to a different song. We now say, what about it is wrong? What can we do to change it? And that's why we didn't have to struggle with that too much this record, I think, because we worked through it intelligently, I hope.